Hello all, Aston here with a new kind of content. After watching some of my favorite YouTubers, I became inspired by them who play Super Mario games to see if they can be completed with certain challenges. With that in mind, I decided to do the same kind of challenge, but with the Legend of Zelda series. So how many Zelda games can we complete without touching a single rupee? For this video, the very first Legend of Zelda and Zelda 2 Adventure of Link for the NES will be included since they're somewhat shorter games than their successors. So, to see if we can complete the Legend of Zelda for the NES, here are some rules. 1. We cannot touch any rupees or obtain any rupees from NPCs, such as the ones that give you some when you enter their homes. 2. That rupee counter must stay at 0 at all times. 3. Must defeat Ganon. 4. The challenge will end when we are forced to collect rupees. Alright, let's get started. So, first off, I booted up the game and made a file to get started. We start in a field, and we go down the cave here to grab the sword. Upon immediate use, we can shoot beams out of our sword, so this could help us defeat enemies from afar and not accidentally touch any rupees. I go out and start making my way to the first dungeon. I evaded some enemies and able to get into the first dungeon. Now that we're here, the dungeon is very small and easy, so I just went through each room, carefully avoided enemies, grabbed a boomerang for myself, and eventually obtained the item of the dungeon, the bow. I exited that room and went straight toward the boss. Defeated the boss, grabbed the heart container, and the first Triforce piece is ours. After exiting the dungeon, I went to venture a little bit to the east, defeated some monsters, avoided the rupees, and bombed this wall here to grab a heart container. After that, I went south and found myself entering the second dungeon. This dungeon is full of robes, which are just snakes, who charge after you. With full health and the boomerang in tow, I was able to defeat them from afar and dodge their rupees. I grabbed some keys, defeated the Gorias while dodging their boomerangs, defeated this fireball mini-boss, and found myself facing the Dodongo. I knew with this boss you needed to feed them 3 bombs in order to defeat them, so after handing it 3 bombs, the heart container and Triforce piece was ours. Exiting this dungeon, I decided it was time to go find the white sword for a nice upgrade. I went north, a little west, and more north until I found a cave where this pond was. In this cave was an old man with the white sword. Excellent! Now with a more powerful sword, we can defeat enemies much easier. I exited the cave, went venturing to go find the third dungeon, all while dodging enemies, defeating some, and avoiding those pesky rupees. Eventually, I showed up at the third dungeon, ready to obtain the next Triforce shard. In this nice shade of green dungeon, I nabbed a free key, defeated some Dark Nuts, which was a challenge, and managed to find the raft. Went back up the stairs, retraced my steps, and eventually nabbed another key. Bombed a wall, defeated more Dark Nuts while avoiding the rupees, and finally made it to the boss command handler. After a tough fight, grabbed the heart container and the third Triforce shard. We are on a roll! Once I exited the dungeon, I thought it would be another good time to look for the next sword upgrade, the magic sword. I started to go east and eventually got lost in the Lost Woods. Yes, it's a location in the first Zelda game. I had to look up a world map and finally found my way out by going north, west, south, and then west again. I eventually came up to a field of Lionels, which I just walked past them and into the graveyard. I went over to the top right portion of the graveyard, pushed the middle tombstone, and went in. The magic sword was there! Unfortunately, I was not able to pick it up. I had to look up what the requirements were, and it was 12 hearts! Well, guess we'll come back later. I ended up in the 4th dungeon and was met with this baby poo green color scheme. Yuck! This dungeon looks terrible! Well, they did their best to work with a limited color palette in the day. Time to tackle this dungeon. I went through some rooms, beat some keys and some wires, traveled through dark rooms. I still had no candle. Nabbed some keys, dodged likes, and finally found the ladder. Now, it was time to go find and defeat the boss. Going through what it seemed like a lot of dark rooms, I finally found the boss. With some easy dodging and rapid sword beams, the boss went down and I added another heart container and Triforce piece to my collection. Nothing too exciting happened between Dungeon 4 and Dungeon 5. I just dodged some enemies and the rupees, and eventually ended up finding the 5th dungeon after going up and up and up and up the mountain, being greeted with a nice shade of green. I dove in and was already greeted with a dark room and some Gyptos! I nabbed a key and bombed the left wall. In this next room, I defeated some Gyptos, bombed the left wall again, and kept going. Here was a room full of dark nuts and blue ones, which were much harder than the red counterparts. But with some patience and smacking them with a bunch of sword beams, I eventually cleared the room to go down the staircase. Some more rooms later, I ended up having to defeat an entire room of blue dark nuts again. After some more patience and dodging the rupees, I finally found the flute. After that, I backtracked through and ended up in the room full of Pole's voice. Now, a little fun fact about this enemy. On the Japanese Famicom version, they have a mic on their second controller. By using this mic, they were able to utilize that to their advantage to defeat these enemies. However, the normal NES does not have a mic, so we can't use that cool feature. Back to finding the boss room, I went through what it seemed forever, but I eventually found the boss room. Using the flute, the boss shrunk and was vulnerable to my sword attacks. Another boss down, another heart container, Triforce piece was ours. Exiting the 5th dungeon, I decided it was time to grab some easy heart containers and get to 12 hearts so we can grab the magic sword. Looking at the world map, I managed to snag 3 additional heart containers for a total of 12. Now, it's time to traverse back through the Lost Woods and through the graveyard. Made my way back, and finally, the magic sword! Now my attacks are much more deadlier. Exiting the cave, it was time to track down the 6th dungeon. After some easy dodging, I ended up at the 6th dungeon. So close! After this dungeon, we only have 2 more, and then the final one to defeat Ganon. Our goal is in our reach! So entering the dungeon, I was greeted with new whiz robes and a bunch of likes in so many rooms. I had to be careful since I didn't have the upgraded shield or either ring, which unfortunately both cost rupees to get. After some hard battles and dodging some more rupees, I finally found the magic rod. I snagged it and went back to finding the boss of the dungeon. After getting lost a few times and having to look up a map again, I finally found my way to the boss, Goma. Here, I knew something was wrong. Nothing can defeat this boss except an arrow to the eye. Not even sword attacks or magic rod beams will do it. Is our quest done here? Maybe. I then went to go see if I could track down free arrows or even enter the 9th dungeon to snag the silver arrows. Unfortunately, to obtain arrows in this game, you have to spend 80 rupees at a shop. The silver arrows are no good because we can't pass this room due to not having all the Triforce shards. So, sadly, Link's quest is over and Zelda will never be saved. There is no other way to get arrows in this game aside from purchasing it and using rupees to fire. We came so far and we were so close, only to be stopped by one boss. If I did the special second quest, it still wouldn't matter because we would eventually need the arrows to defeat Goma, and not to mention to defeat Ganon. So, is it possible to finish The Legend of Zelda on the NES without touching a single rupee? Sadly, no. We got so far into the quest too. What a major bummer. Now, on to the next Zelda game, Zelda 2: The Adventure of Link. The black sheep of the series. I actually enjoy watching others play this game, especially a certain YouTuber who plays this game randomized every year around Thanksgiving in November. It gave me a new perspective of this game. I've completed it before, and that was good enough for me to check off my Zelda list. Now, can we complete this game without touching a single rupee? Well, this game only has items, magic jars, and experience bags, and no rupees. So yes, it is possible. And there you have it. The first 2 Zelda games in the series of the No Touching Rupees challenge. Next up, A Link to the Past for the Super Nintendo, which will be covered in the next video. Thank you so much for watching. Please like and subscribe for more upcoming content. Have a great day. Bye!